this past Sunday, Pastor talks about a purpose for your pain,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a really good sermon. And he started it basically with John 9:1-3.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll read it. It says, "Now as Jesus passed by, he saw a man who was blind from birth. His disciples asked him, saying, 'Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?' Jesus answered, 'Neither man nor his parents sinned. Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but that the works of God should be revealed in him.'"
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that was a really poignant verse, scripture, and especially with the way the pastor broke it down. I know we both took some notes. So, what want to go over your first note, kind of what you took from it?
Even from just reading the scripture, I think it's interesting that they asked like who sinned, like somebody had to have done something for this man to be born blind. So I thought that was the first interesting fact from the scripture. And then my first note is all pain is not because of wrongdoings.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Because people naturally, I mean, when I say people, we do the same thing. We think it's got to be something. Like everything that you go through is not the result of, it's not a consequence of behavior or action. I think sometimes God, as it says here, He did it so that the works of God can be revealed
right,
in Him.
right.
Uh,
And even in that, like I have another note, and it says even some good people are going to have bad days, and life is ever changing. So even just in that, I think it's important that we remember that. I mean, just that life is ever changing.
Yeah, no, and you make a good point. And this actually isn't in my notes, but when you said that, it made me think about when you said, even good people are afflicted with pain or troubles. And I think it was interesting when you think about it. It says for this particular man, uh, but it says, but that the works of God should be revealed in him. So nobody wants to necessarily be the vessel or the tool that God used to reveal His work.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there is something to be said about the fact that God can choose you
Mm-hmm.
to reveal His work because He can't choose everybody.
Right.
And so while it may not feel special at that time,
Mm-hmm.
but when you think about it as you go through it, and of course once you come through it, the fact is like, well, hey man, God chose me because He believed that I would not only give Him the glory, but I would also be a person that would, for whatever reason, captivate the audience that He wants to see and know about His good works.
Right.
So that's something that just came to mind when you was talking about that.
Right. And then just to piggyback off of that, sometimes you may be going through something for someone else around you to see how strong
Yep.
you are while you going through it. So, like you said, no one wants to be the chosen one, but if you are, you have to be strong, not only for yourself but for the people around you. That might be the only person they have, or you never know. Like your test can be a testimony for someone else, just because we never know what we're gonna be faced with. So if I see you going through something and I see how you were able to go through it and you stay strong to it through it, that's gonna give me the strength that I need to get through whatever I might be faced with in the future.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think to that point, you're talking about the future and how God knows what you're going to face. He knows before we know who the audience will be, or who that person that will need our testimony. And I
Right.
think you look at this situation here. It the pastor talked about this on Saturday, where it says that prior to this, there was no other interaction between this man and Jesus.
Right.
Yet Jesus knew that he was blind, and so he knew that he was blind. It says he was blind from birth. So you say, well, how did Jesus know that he was blind from birth? Well, he knew he was blind from birth because Jesus is with us throughout our problems. He doesn't just show up. He's there from the beginning and the end. So in order for us to be afflicted with anything, it has to go through Jesus first to get to us. He has to allow it. And so, I think that's something that, for us to remember as we go through the trials and tribulations of whatever we're dealing with. This particular verse is important, personal to me, because it reminds me of when I was in college and I was diagnosed with cancer, and at the time it didn't make sense. I'm like, man, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I'm a football player, I'm in great health. Like, what? Why? And that was a big question. And my mama told me that. Well, she's like, it's not for you. It's so that people can see that God can still work miracles, and people can see that whatever you're going through, God can maintain you. And in that, I went through the chemo, didn't lose any hair, didn't lose any weight, did radiation, all of those things, but God kept me, and it was not just for me. It was for my teammates, other young men, to see what God can do. And so I think it's the responsibility that you have to acknowledge when God chooses you, if you will, to allow something, allow pain to come, that, hey, it's just not about me. So.
Good.
You got any other notes that you took?
Can I ask questions? And you know what I'm saying? Because
yeah.
I only had one brother, and he was diagnosed, and when I was in college, he was 16, so he would have no young adult years, driving, prom, everything that we did, and him really seeing early how people are fickle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All his friends, no longer friends. You saying being the chosen one, it's really hard. But when do you really, wrap your mind around being a chosen one, being all the sacrifices, all the, it really, when did it really hit you? Like, oh man,
Man, honestly, I think it hit me when it hit me when my mother said it, because I was really struggling with. I was just like, this doesn't make any sense. Of all of my teammates, of all the things that other people are doing, like, why not them? Like, why me? And when she said it, it made all the sense in the world, because I understood. Like, I was like, that was the answer. I was like, that has to be it. Like, because I knew that I was going to trust God. I knew that when God carried me and delivered me through, I would be the one to say it was God. And so once I realized that part of it, I was like, yeah, that's the only reason why he could have chose me. And so it became a choice at that point to just own it. And it gave me peace, because I understood that in order for it to be that God willing to use me, like, I couldn't die. Like, I couldn't lose my hair. I couldn't get all sickly, because that wasn't necessarily the testimony that I believed and was certainly hoping for, that God wanted. He wanted it to be, this guy has cancer. He's still at practice. He's still training. He's still, he's not going to miss. His football career is not going to be over. Because with that, he knew, he entrusted the fact that I would be the one saying, no, it was God. It wasn't, I appreciate the doctors, but it was definitely God who carried me through.
How did your players and coaches respond to that type of, being a part of that? You know what I'm saying?
Man, well, you caught me off guard with that one. No. It's when I was diagnosed, my coach told me. I went into his office, and he told me that I would have to tell my teammates. And I was like, no, I don't want to tell nobody. I didn't want to go through that. And he was like, Walter, you're going to have to tell him, man. What are you going to do when you start losing your hair? And I was like, Coach, I prayed to God and I wasn't going to lose my hair. And he was just like, well, you still got to tell him. So I went into the team room and told my teammates. And everybody was just like shocked. I had just finished that season. I was made first team all conference, the second all American. So I came off a great season, and it happened in the last game of the season when I broke my collarbone, and during the follow-up X-rays when they found out. So it caught everybody by surprise, and so it was really interesting. At that point, my teammates were really like scared, concerned, like they were there for me. But it was interesting because after we went through that emotional like deliverance of what it was, and then I started training, like before you knew it, people like forgot, and I had a port in my chest. So like my teammates would be like, I'm in there working out, they're not thinking about it. So we football, they like, we playing like, I'm like, hey, and they're like, oh, bro, and they would like freak out once they remembered, because for a lot of them, it was like they talked about it, behind my back, like, man, Walt got cancer, bro, like, we gotta look out for him. But after a certain point in time, it's like, did this like really got cancer? Like, he in here with us, like he's working out. Like I didn't miss anything, and it was God, and that there were news people came doing interviews that kind of kept people remember, like kept it fresh on their minds. But my teammates were really good, and they were true, like a true brotherhood. They were there to support. Just it was good.
That's very man, that's very special, because a lot of people don't get to be a part of that, a story like that. You see it on ESPN all the time.
Yeah.
Just to be on the other side of that, having a candid view, a real live view, and to be, to overcome, to be successful, and to reach out to 50 or more guys, 75 plus in the organization. You being a vessel, not only from God, but as an example of dedication, hard work, resilience. You know what I mean? So I think that is very special to embark in that and be able to relate in with your studying the Bible study. So I think that's very cool and interesting to be able to have a real live attachment to these stories as far as being a vessel, because people really don't understand. They know what it is, but to have a completely different understanding of the actually being one is something that I think people really can't fathom. You know what I mean? Because Moses was a vessel. A lot of these people were vessels. And for you to be a vessel in this millennium, in this day and age, that's something to be able to reach. A whole complete organization at school, at a college. You know what I'm saying? Is like more than amazing.
It was. You hit the nail on the head, man. The crazy thing about it was really a blessing. Like I think when I reflect back onto where I was at that time mentally, just knowing, like I knew what I was on. Like I knew where my mind was. I knew I was thinking NFL. I'm like, okay, everything is lining up. I had already graduated. I'm like, I'm at this point the NFL is a foregone conclusion. You know what I mean? I done everything I need to do on the field. I got one more year. I'm about to. It's on. I'm about to ball. Like I'm going to the league, and so this happens, and it's like, whoa, like what in the world? And so it was interesting, because when you're going through it, you're just like, okay, the doctors are saying one thing, right? The doctors are like, oh, you're going to lose your hair. The doctors are saying there's no way you're gonna be able to train. There's no way. Like when I was doing the radiation, we were in 2-a-days. I started radiation during the middle of 2-a-days, and I would get up. I would go to the radiation in the morning, leave radiation, literally go straight to the practice field, and my coach would be like, "Dude, you're good, man. Like And I was like, no, coach. He would try to get me not to practice. I'm like, coach, if I don't practice, then I'm going to be sick. Like, I'm going to get sick if you don't let me practice. And he was terrified because he just thinking like, man, if something happens out here to this guy, his mama is not going to let me live it out. But again, man, the testimony is that week before the first game, I was diagnosed, if you will, cancer free. And man, I played the first game of the season. The first play of the game, hit a dude, caused a fumble. It was just like, I mean, really, the crazy thing about it, I was back to what I've been doing. You know, it was like I started the game, made a play, and it was just, again, it wasn't about me. It was about showing people like, yeah, dude, because, you know, people are trying to see, like, man, is he really going to play? And it's just like a charity deal. They're going to just like put him out there just because it's a good story. And it's like, nah, he back. This is what he do. You know, and that season I finished first team all conference, led the conference in interceptions. I mean, again, it's part of just God's what he could do. Because I would go to chemo, and I remember the way it was set up. It was like a room, and there were all these people hooked up to these chairs getting their chemo treatment. And I would come in there, and it would be kids, it would be old people, but there were no young people like my age. So I would come in, and people would see a head full of hair. And at that point, I was working out. You know, I was football player. I was probably, 195, like, solid. And so they would just be like, and you could just see, like, the doctors, the nurses were just like, just baffled, because they knew, like everybody else in there would look like they were going through treatment. And people don't understand, cancer is not really the issue. What you're seeing is the treatment. That's where you see the people start to deteriorate. I mean, you think I had cancer during the whole football season. It didn't affect me. It was in my lung. It was a grapefruit size. And the doctor's like, how were you not fatigued? Like, how did you? I'm like, I mean, I played every snap. I don't know. Maybe I was fatigued, but I mean, so what? It's part of the game, I guess, right? And it's like, no, you should have been winded. Like, there's no way you're not getting full lung. All these other things, and God just showed otherwise.
Wasn't anything like that, but man, a lot of people only see it on ESPN because they thinking, oh man,
Yeah.
One in a million situations. People don't realize it happens all the time, and there are more vessels than just the 20 handful of people they think it's in the Old New Testament. They're walking around every day.
Absolutely.
And I think people need to understand and realize that
God still works miracles. Like, it's not just a Bible thing.
Exactly. It's not a myth. It's not like
right. But that was then.
Exactly. Yeah. It happens all day, every day.
Absolutely. Especially today's world, it's like man and medicine is God. Where back then it was, well, of course it was miracles because there wasn't no medicine, so you had to have miracles, right? But it's like, no, it's still the same thing. Like, God is still working miracles, period.